Please, Mayor Porco.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Roll call, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley,
Here.
Ms. DeMarco,
Present.
Mr. Urbanair,
Here.
Mr. Gorel,
Here.
Mr. Lawrence,
Here.
Mr. Thielacker,
Here.
Mr. Tomasic,
Here.
Mayor Porco,
Here.
Ms. Sullivan,
Here.
Mr. Corbel,
I'm here.
Mr. Gilliland,
Present.
and I'm present.
All right, for the president's report, very briefly, I would like to say that things seem to be going very well here in the state, in Allegheny County, and in Forest Hills with the COVID-19 virus. We're in the green. Things are starting to open up. And I would just ask that everybody remain safe, wear those masks, keep the distancing, and keep clean. Use the materials that they have available. That concludes my report. Thank you. Mayor's report, Mayor Porco.
Thank you, Mr. President. A few items under my report this evening. We'll start with the pool. So I've been working closely with our emergency services coordinator, Keith Morris, as well as the pool and borough managers on the reopening plan of the pool, which is scheduled to happen next week. We will be limiting the number of attendees and using a reservation system to best manage the control of people who can attend the pool. And for more information, I will just ask that everybody please check Forest Hills Borough's website for the targeted opening day. We were initially targeting next Monday, the 22nd. However, we've experienced some leaking in the pool system, so we've contracted with a firm to come out and help us pinpoint the source of the leak. The idea being, though, is that we're targeting midweek next week to open the pool and have people start attending. Parks. So the parks and fields have been open for approximately 3 weeks now. However, the playground equipment has remained closed in large part due to some of the uncertainty about how the virus is spread, having droplets come in contact with the playground equipment, how long that virus lives on plastic and metal surfaces. However, the playground equipment remaining closed will change. So this coming Monday, again, June 22nd, our playgrounds will be open. We'll be posting signs soon. We're targeting the end of this week to have that done. And removing the snow fence barriers from around the playground equipment in our parks. Black Lives Matter event this past Friday, Indivisible Forest Hills organized a show of support event for the Black Lives Matter movement. This event was not a protest against the Forest Hills Police Department, nor a protest against law enforcement, but rather a very positive and respectful show of support for BLM in Forest Hills. The event occurred without incident, and the response by passing motorists was extremely positive. Councilpersons Patty DeMarco and Marcus Erwaldinger were in attendance, as well as Woodland Hills School Board members Mike Belmont, Ronna Curry, and Jamie Glasser. U.S. Congressman Mike Doyle and State Senator Jay Costa also attended this event. And finally, Chief Chuck Williams and I have met several times over the past several weeks to discuss the events that have occurred nationally pertaining to law enforcement and the extremely disturbing incidences of police misuse of force and lethal force. And we both agree that the incidences were horrific to watch, especially the incident which resulted in the death of George Floyd. There's been an ongoing dialogue nationally about how to prevent these types of travesties from occurring, including calls to defund the police. Locally, we have had some calls to defund our local police department, as well as calls from residents who wish to show their support for our police department and recognize the good and professional job that they do. My thoughts on this are that there are no simple solutions to address the frustration and senselessness we've observed in the news lately, other than ongoing dialogue, education, and training. The Forest Hills Police Department has adopted and updated many policies which I feel prevent incidences like the ones we observed in Minneapolis from happening in our town. And tonight, Chief Williams will be speaking to that as part of his report. I would simply ask that those of you who are watching and listening to this meeting tonight, just keep in mind that police officers do have an extremely stressful job. It's one where they just really never know what they're going to walk into and encounter. And I will just say that personally, I am extremely proud of our police department for their professionalism and the way they represent our community. And that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tax collector report, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. My tax collector report is for the month of May. Our real estate taxes collected in May totaled $389,282. Refunds issued in May were $4,111. So our monthly net collections after refunds was $385,171. Year to date, I've collected $2,442,862. Our budgeted amount is $2,912,587. So at the end of May, we are at 83.8% of the budget. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
You're welcome.
Chief of Police report, Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your kind comments. With the current events on the minds of most, I wanted to give our residents some insight about the police department. Approximately 8 years ago, and well ahead of most departments in the Pittsburgh area, a decision was made by our elected officials to purchase body-worn cameras in an effort to provide safety and transparency for the department. Now, with the age of that equipment, this past year, police funding provided us the opportunity to upgrade our older body-worn camera system to a newer one that works in conjunction with our car camera units. Police funding this year will provide new ballistic vests for officers. Besides equipment updates, we always keep a close eye on current events and issues. This enables us to move forward and quickly when necessary, when change may occur, and generally tries to keep us ahead of potential problems. Concerns about policies like the 8 can wait have been mentioned recently, and we currently meet most of those. It seems apparent that between local, state, and federal officials, policies and guidelines will be updated to new, safer standards. We will sculpture our updated policies in that light. Officer training has also been a subject of conversation. Pennsylvania, like many states, mandates ongoing update training yearly, which covers subjects like use of force, de-escalation, and diversity training. The Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission has made these necessary types of training mandatory. Our department, we work with other entities throughout the county to better serve our needs for residents and people we encounter. Resolve crisis, for example, is one we commonly call upon with mental health needs. Children, youth, and families, another. When we have family issues with children or issues with just family in general, we tend to call them for their help and assistance. Probably one of our greatest helps comes from our District Justice, Tom Caulfield. We work with him with many individuals we encounter. He has helped us to move many of the people we are involved with into programs to better serve their unique situations. In many cases, clearing a shorter path using outside agencies or programs used by the court system. My last statement is that police work is difficult and challenging, but it always requires officers to be caring and compassionate to all. this police department's goal is to be better every day. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Community Development, Richard isn't on. Is he on board with us tonight? No. Okay. Chief Thielacker, Chief Master Andrea. Solicitors report, Mr. Corbel.
Nothing to report this evening, Mr. President.
All right. Ms. Braz is not present either. But on the agenda, you can see that there were 3 water breaks that were reported. Other committee board reports, Connect, Ms. DeMarco. Anything?
Connect is in the process of preparing resolutions for our adoption. One is relating to recycling and single-use plastics, which I hope to bring for your consideration next month before it goes to the Congress in September. And we have been working on a collaborative with ICLEI and the DEP through Connect. They are planning to take over the coordination of the 4 communities that are doing climate action plans through ICLEI, because that program ends at the end of June. And we will be continuing that coordination effort through Connect through at least till the end of the year. Our intern is with us through the end of the year as well. Connect continues to have a number of initiatives of coordinating services among communities. We are very active on the utilities, shared utility service, and are doing a special study on municipal waste and recycling efforts, which we hope to have a report back to by the end of this month. So you'll be seeing it next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything on the PA Municipal League, Mr. Lawrence?
Nothing to report, Mr. President.
And Mr. Thielacker on the COG?
No, no report.
Okay, thank you. We now come to the public comment area. All persons wishing to address items based on the explanation below will be heard at this time. You are to use the hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen to request to speak following announcement of the start of the public comment period. This period focuses on both agenda and non-agenda items. At this time, citizens may address council on any issue appearing on today's agenda or any other issue you may wish to bring before council. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Forest Hills would be permitted to address council. This is the only public comment period for this meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. Speakers are reminded that council uses these comment periods as opportunities to gather information and not to respond directly to concerns raised. Information gathered will not be discussed at the business meeting, but instead will be referred by the council president to the appropriate committee for review and discussion at the next committee meeting. That being said, are there any participants who would like to address council at this time?
All right, we have one attendee, Michelle Kreinock, who'd like to address council. So I'm going to move her over into the panelist area to allow her to talk.
Just allow her to unmute, Frank. You don't need to move her to the panelist.
Okay, no problem. Michelle, you're now in the panelist area and can ask or rather make your statement.
Hello, can you hear me?
We're having a hard time hearing you. Can you talk more directly into your microphone?
Does this work better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Excellent. My name is Michelle Kreinock. I'm a resident of Forest Hills, and I'd like to thank you for educating us on the existing policies from the police department. I'm really glad. Yes.
Ms. Frank, I'm sorry, could you also specify your address for the record, please?
Okay. 705 Atlantic Avenue. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the police department policies, and like I was going to say, I'm really glad to hear about a lot of those policies that are already in place, and I'm especially glad to hear that you use outside organizations like Common Crisis to handle certain things. I'd like to use this moment in the national spotlight to move even further along those lines and formalize alternative emergency response units. I think as a citizen, it would put a lot of people's minds at ease if they could call 911 and know that they'll have someone coming to help them who's a specialist in the area that they're working for. We already expect that if we call with a fire, we will have firemen come to help. If we call with a medical emergency, we'll have EMS come to help. And I think there are lots of other areas where that can work as well, like mental health, like sexual assault, like homelessness. So there are lots of people talking about this nationwide, and I'd like to make sure that you guys are getting in on the conversation. And if needed, organizing with other municipalities and other outside organizations to get this going so that we can have people in the field responding to these emergencies. I understand that being a police officer is extremely stressful, and I'm really grateful for the work that you do. But I also think that lots of other jobs are very stressful, and lots of hospital workers and social workers, especially these days in the time of COVID-19, go to their jobs every day, knowing they might be in danger, knowing there might be violence, and go to the highest risk areas in our country. And they don't need to bring guns, and they don't, they're trained in de-escalations in certain ways that we could learn from. Or just use those social workers. And I think that would go a long way towards helping the police department be less stressed. You are on call to answer anything that happens in a community, and I think there are ways we can do that where you're not on call for everything, and that I think would help you do your jobs in a more focused way and easier and in less danger. So yeah, I just want to make sure that our city council is paying attention to these proposals and coordinating with anyone else interested in these sorts of ideas to get these alternative emergency response things going. And I think that would help a lot of people feel more at ease calling 911 for emergencies that don't require police. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. I would just like to say that this will go to the Public Safety Committee for discussion. And to parrot basically what the chief and the mayor have said, I believe that Forest Hills has been on a forefront with a lot of these items over the years. We were some of the first of the boroughs to have body cams. I know when I first was on council as the public safety chair, we initiated training on a regular basis. So I think that we try to stay attuned to what's going on. And again, this will be moved to the Public Safety Committee. Thank you. The next schedule, is there anybody else that wants to participate? If I get out of order here, please stop me and let me know. Sometimes I forget to hit the bar and start talking. So let me know, okay? Thank you. The next.
So, Mr. President, there's nobody else who looks like they wish to speak, so I think you're good to go.
Okay, I'm good to go?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Next scheduled committee meetings, subject to change, all right, are scheduled for Tuesday, July 7th. All committees meet as part of the Committee of the Whole. The July 2nd meetings have been canceled. We will be using the Zoom format. We may choose to meet as a whole and conduct business if necessary at that time. Moving into July, we anticipate that being in the green, that we may go back to in-person meetings by mid-July, but that is all up in the air. That leads us to committee reports. Operations and Policy, Mr. Lawrence, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I move to appoint Patrick Cooper of Berlin Road to the Environmental Advisory Council to fill a vacancy with a term to expire on February 28, 2023.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments?
Mr. Cooper attended the last Environmental Advisory Council meeting. He's very gung-ho and very excited to be involved. He has a lot of good ideas and is actually the executive director of the renovations that are taking place in the old Franklin School at the bottom of Ardmore, just beyond the BP station. He lives in Forest Hills, really nice people. I'm really glad to have him aboard.
Okay, anything else? Okay, that requires a voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it.
I move to approve the minutes from the May 27th, 2020 council meeting.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Okay, voice vote again. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it.
The only thing I'll add, and you can see in the general report, point 3 is the mayor and the mayor's asked the manager and the chief of police to continue to look at alternatives to improve our communications with residents. You may be aware we do have the telephone messaging that provides certain alerts, but we'd like to see if there's a better way to communicate with our residents on a more frequent basis. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Finance Committee, Ms. DeMarco.
thank you, Mr. President. I have a number of motions this evening. First being a motion to approve payment of the bills for the month of May in the following amounts. From the general fund budget in the amount of $145,654.75. From the corrective action budget in the amount of $12,763.25. From the fire protection fee in the amount of $11,339.59. From the capital improvements budget, $50,720, and for the borough building, $2,642.85.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions? All right.
The capital expenditure was for the pool caulking and the spray park. That was the only one that wouldn't. Okay,
Okay, roll call vote, please, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley? Bill, you have to unmute yourself. Mr. Burley? I'll pass on him for now. Ms. DeMarco?
Come back to him.
yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger?
Yes.
Mr. Gorel?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker?
Yes.
President Tomasic?
Yes. Motion passes.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hold on one second, please, just a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I also have a motion, as you recall, we discussed in committee, a discussion about our bond issue. And I would like to move to approve additional money in the financing in the amount of $500,000 as part of refinancing of the existing bond issues as previously approved by ordinance. And Mr. Morris, would you put up that spreadsheet on the screen so people can see the options as part of this motion?
In a minute, as soon as I get a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So as part of the discussion, I think it would be helpful to see the information that we requested from Mr. McCagg at our committee meeting. Okay. All right.
You mean this page?
Yes, you can see the three options. If you go down a little bit, the three options that we had asked to look at, And it illustrates here our existing debt service and the three options for 250,000, in addition, 375,000 and 500,000. Mr. Erbaldinger.
I have a comment. Since it's like almost a 0% interest loan, as you can see in your table very nicely, we're kind of kicking the can down the road into the year 2035. So I don't think we should really go for $500,000, because then council in 2035 has to pay for that, what we're doing today. So I think we should more focus on living on our means and just spend what we have today, meaning I'm in favor of the $250,000 option, because I don't think we should burden council in 2035 with that.
Other comments?
Yeah, I am behind the $500,000 option. It's only $190,000 difference in the year 2035. And currently we have a laundry list of past due maintenance and updates that need done to numerous buildings in the borough. So I am behind the $500,000 option.
Okay, other comments?
Yes, I will comment on this list, so to speak. We have a list that I asked Mr. Morris to put together for us that shows what these particular monies are going to be used for. So taking a look at one of the attachments, we're talking about the Westinghouse Rec Center, 70,000, the Public Works Garage, 86, the swimming pool, 156. Okay, those I believe are minimums that we're talking about there. And anything else that Mr. Morris has associated with the spending. When we first did a bond issue back in 2008, I believe it was, we used it to buy a fire truck, and we knew exactly where that money was going. When we did the refinance to save money the last time, what we did was we spread it out so that we had approximately, I think it was $25,000 annual savings. So we used that in the budget. So if we're going to go for any amount from $250,000 to $500,000, I think that we need to attach this list as part of the motion, or a separate motion that specifically ties in all of the monies to the proposed work that is being discussed. So whatever one we decide on, I would appreciate it if council would either amend this or have a separate motion to connect that directly to the bond issue, as we've done with our road program and our fire protection services ordinance as well. Those are my only comments, regardless of how much that we end up borrowing.
Okay. Any other further comments?
And just to clarify, this is to enable it should we decide to do so. It's not a decision to do so.
I think we're asking a decision whether we go forward with the refinancing and the amount, because the favorable rates are right now at a very low level, and our bond counsel has recommended that the discussion we'd had earlier about refinancing is timely to execute at this time. And so we need to decide whether to go with the lowest number or whether we should go with a higher number to allow accommodation. I also would like to point out that we are in a very economically uncertain time, and we may need to have some flexibility in our bonding for capital improvements, because we may need the flexibility to use our capital reserve for other kinds of things if we have a budget shortfall in the coming year or two.
I think
I would like to recommend that we allow the bonding to go forward at the higher amount of 500,000.
I think we should go for 500,000 as well. Hello?
Okay, is that Bill Burley?
Yes, this is Bill. Yes, it is. I think the 500,000 is a very logical move at this point because you're right, Patty. The market is low, and we have a really good interest rate, and we want to make sure we have enough to cover the space that we need to get everything done within too.
Okay.
So I agree, 500,000 would be the way to go.
Are there any further comments? I can't see people on my screen, so I don't know if people want to speak. Okay. Anyone else want to comment on this at this time?
Did
Yeah,
you hear
Patty.
me?
My comments are just pretty much the same as yours. We're worried about the capital budget for the next couple of years. We can take that money from the general fund that typically goes into the capital improvement budget, keep it separate in the general fund if we need to, and use this bond refinance money we're getting to take care of all these capital projects. I mean, I think we have to go with the 500 here. If it was raising our payment at all or anything like that, I would be against it. To keep our payments are all the same the whole way through. It just adds on a full payment in the final year and a partial payment the year before. If we're unable to meet that payment 15 years from now, then we probably shouldn't have had a bond issue out already if we're making one more year payment on that. I don't think that should be an issue, especially a lot of these projects, the rec center. We've been talking about doing these capital projects, and I've been on council now, and I've been bringing them up numerous times. I think we need to get these issues done the last 30 plus years. That's what these capital projects are for, and then we won't have to worry about them again.
Yeah, okay.
Did
Right.
you get my suggestion? Patty, did you get my suggestion?
Yes, I did. I had your comments were heard by everybody. Are there any further comments or are we ready to take a vote?
Okay, are there any other comments from anybody? I think we have all opinions expressed here.
Okay.
Okay. And we did have a second, I believe.
We did.
So then we need a roll call vote, please. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
I'm for refinancing, but not for the $500,000. I'm not, no.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
No.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes, motion passes.
Can I add one thing? I'm sorry. You've already approved refinancing, just so you know. This is not approval of refinancing. Maybe I should have said that before, but that's already been done months ago.
Right,
Just the
right.
approval.
We have gone through all of the mechanics associated with the process. The only thing that we didn't do until tonight was establish the amount of money. So we've been going back and forth on this for quite some time. And we have been waiting for the right time to refinance. That's why we're doing it now as opposed to having it done already in the past. We ran into a little problem with rate adjustments or changes that wouldn't have given us the savings that we're talking about at this time. So the motion is passed. Let's move on to the next one, please.
okay, thank you very much. I would like to make a motion to appoint First Commonwealth as the borough's depository of funds for all banking services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions? None being, roll call vote, please. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Burley,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbaldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tomasic.
Yes.
okay, thank you. And I have a motion to authorize the borough manager to extend payment deadlines for borough fees through August 31st, 2020.
Second.
Is there any?
We have a motion and a second. Hope, bear with me just a second here. All right, I'm back with you here. Any questions on the motion? Okay, voice vote for this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. There are a number of items from our general manager. If Mr. Morris, would you like to report on anything here?
Oh, I think everything's pretty self-explanatory unless you have a question.
Okay. Right, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marco. Before we end, again, I would like to bring the attention to the Finance Committee at the next meeting that we discuss the item that I asked be brought up, and that is connecting the monies to the specific projects and passing an ordinance that does so. Thank you.
I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Okay, Borough Property, Mr. Thielacker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to amend fee resolution number 1208 with resolution number 1213 to include the following changes to section 19, part C, while eliminating sponsorships, plus packages, and non-resident admissions for 2020.
Second. Second.
Okay, we have a second on that. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, if I could just explain what we're doing here, all we're doing is updating the fee resolution with the pool not opening on time, with all these different things we're gonna have to work through this pool season. We changed the pool fees. We need a vote to change those. And they're listed in the agenda, what those will be.
Right, I think that's the pause that we were waiting. We thought maybe they were going to be read, but I think Mr. Belay made the second to the motion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we will then move on. Any other comments? Okay, that being said, we need a roll call vote for Mr. Morris, please.
Mr. Burley,
Yes.
Ms. DeMarco,
Yes,
Mr. Erbldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Goro,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Thielacker,
Yes.
President Tabasik.
Yes, motion passes.
I move to approve the Recreation Department's proposal for reopening the pool once all work is completed and protocols are in place that require residents and attendees to, among other protocols, the list of issues here, wear face coverings when not in the pool, reserving time slots, restricting use of the bathrooms, the shower areas will be closed, leave the pool immediately at the end of their sessions, and anything else that we come up with in the Recreation Department to keep the pool safe for this pool season.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? I just have one. What was the day that we have scheduled for the opening of the pool?
Tentatively next Wednesday,
Okay,
assuming that this leak problem is found. If not Wednesday, then Thursday. We're not exactly sure
okay,
yet
just
what the
the
time-
mid or late next week. Okay, thank you. All right. So for this, we need a voice vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
For my general report, there's a few items listed there that people can take a look at. Real quickly, I just wanted to thank Steve Morris, the borough manager, obviously the mayor, Frank Porco, Keith Morris, the emergency management coordinator, Cindy Sim, our recreation director, Lynn Cassidy, the pool manager, the recreation board, specifically Ed Galloway. I've had a lot of help with Frank, and then Jim Thielacker, the public works foreman, for all the work put into specifically the recreation side of everything going on and getting the parks under control and the pool back open for this season. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, that's the end, I believe, of his report. So moving on to planning and zoning, Mr. Belay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any motions today. I just have a couple of general comments on my report. First, our manager, Steve, I guess Mr. Silversmith is trying to find a home for the Adams Smasher. Well, we've been working with that for a while. Hopefully we can. And number two, we received reports from the building inspector, underwriters, and our code inspector, Mr. Don Branzel. And they were talking about several problems that we're having with some of the properties and some of the actions that were taken. And that's all I have with my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Mr. Belay, thank you. Public Works Committee, Mr. Goro.
Thank you. I have no voting motions this evening. I do want to touch on a few things. The 2019 paving project is nearly wrapped up. The contractor has a section of defective paving on Watt Lane that will need to be milled out and repaved. 2020 project was awarded, and the water, sorry, I lied. The gas company is doing work on Lennox between Atlantic and Decatur, and they're only paving one side of the road. We did request a bid from them, and the contractor said $30,000. So we will be adding $10,000 onto our paving project to pave the other side of that road where the road work is being done. And there's a Three Rivers wet weather update, and that is all. And that concludes my report.
Okay, a comment on the $10,000, $9,000 to $10,000 bid. We have a history, I believe it was done on Burlington, in which we had to go back in and pave half a road, similar to this situation. My one question is, we had decided that we were going to withhold 2 streets being done, Lee and Decatur, a total of $53,000. That is in place, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, public safety, Mr. Erbaldinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no voting motions, and we talked a lot about the police already, but I would like to take that moment to thank our chief of police. I think our police department changed since under his guidance. And I think we are truly on the forefront, like Chuck already mentioned, and we are truly a community-based police department already. So I think lots of cities, big cities, they're maybe aiming for what we have already, I feel. So I thank him for his efforts. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Erbaldinger. Old business, new business, nothing is listed. So therefore, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Wait. Oh, I have new business.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. President. One quick thing. I did receive an email last evening from a borough resident, Brian Bond, in the Edgewood Acres area. So I will be meeting with Jimmy to discuss these things in the coming weeks, and I will bring it to the Public Works Committee in the July meeting, which I believe is going to be the 7th. And it looks like a panelist just chimed in and said that they have comments as well. But I will be discussing the road deterioration and possibly street sweeping in the area over there of the Edgewood Acres. But I did want to bring that up and put it on record.
Okay, that will go to the committee. There are no comments from any panelists at this time.
There's the person with their hand up.
This
we have
is
one-
not the time for comments. The comments were done at the beginning of the meeting. Therefore, the meeting is concluded. It is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.